My mom, she never realized anything like that could happen to me. That voice in your head that's screaming at you, it's terrorizing you. You still feel that pain. Your only thoughts are food.
Hello, you guys, and welcome back to our podcast. I'm Maya.
I'm Viola.
And in today's episode, Viola is more of a guest than a podcaster because today's topic is going to be food disorder. And that is what Viola has been struggling with for the past 2 years, I think, 1.5. And
Well,
finally,
4 technically.
4, okay. And finally, she decided to share this whole experience slash path with you guys because we feel like a lot of people struggle with this or even like touch upon this topic in their lives, and we feel like we need to share some information that we know about.
I would also like to say that with this episode, we're starting a new series. So every now and then there will be an episode touching up on eating disorders, and hopefully giving you more insight and perhaps help. We just want to state that this is not medical advice by any means. This is just my personal experience with anorexia, and I just feel like I need to share some statements with the world and hopefully help some of you guys as well.
So to begin this podcast, I would like to ask you, how did you even get to these disordered thoughts about food and body images? How did they first appear?
Looking back, I'd say that it first appeared around 11 or 12 years old, which it's crazy to say. But I never really approached these thoughts as something disordered. I always thought that, with this age, every girl kind of struggles with these topics, and, especially being surrounded by the boys that in this age, they do have a lot of rude comments. Also, the girls get more into social media, perhaps. For me, that wasn't the case as much because I never felt like social media had such a negative impact on me. But I know that many girls struggle with, their body image through social media. I also feel like getting more into the world of like modeling and stuff, you get more surrounded by it, you get more aware of it, which for me, that was the case very much because I, for some reason, really started to get invested into like what the models eat, and I really became like obsessed with the model body, kind of the really stereotypical model body. That's where I'd say it all began. It's when I started to take control more of like, not what, but more of like how much I'm eating. And it never really clicked to me that I was a very, very active kid and teenager, and I was burning like so many calories just by doing all my sports. And these models, their bodies are all different. They're not children anymore. They do different activities in their day. They're obviously not growing anymore. They also have some standards that they have to follow, and that never applied to me as a kid, going from training to training. And I never really thought about that. All I saw was just the food.
Mm-hmm. So there wasn't like a thought that you want to lose weight or something like that. It was just like that you want to find a maybe new motive in life, like being a model or trying to be like someone.
Kind of.
Okay.
That's actually really interesting. I never was obsessed with the number on the scale. It was always more about what I see in the mirror. Mm-hmm. But the thing is that I had body dysmorphia, like very heavy body dysmorphia, and even like later we'll get to this, but when I was at my lowest weight, like it was really bad, I never saw any changes on my body. I see them only now, like looking back when I'm good.
That's interesting. Did it always feel like just you're being healthy, or did it later also feel like you're in control?
It definitely began with that. I wanted to, I felt there was something wrong with me, and I agree with the fact that you can always improve in any area of your life. You can always study more, I guess. You can always work more, but more is not always better, and sometimes less is actually what you need. And I feel like if I never manipulated with my diet, I don't feel like I had a bad diet by any means. Like my mom, she was really like focused on cooking nutritious foods. You know, I never really felt like I had bad eating habits or anything. I was just eating a lot to sustain all my activity, compared maybe to other kids or so. And, you know, in the beginning, it was all like if I change my diet, if I change how much I eat, and I kind of copy what others are doing, models, you know, which I considered they must be very healthy, right? Like it's their job to look good and be healthy. So I felt like I was doing the best for myself, and I feel like maybe the last 2 years of the disorder were starting to be more about that control. Even with like life happening and, you know, me growing older, there were more problems in my life, family problems, illnesses, deaths, school issues. School was getting harder, people were getting meaner, and I felt like this was the one thing that, you know, since those 11 years old, I was able to take control of. I was able to find comfort in that and manipulate with it. So that was when it kind of started to shift into more of a control thing or like a bad coping mechanism. But it definitely began with like trying to be as healthy as possible.
And going back to the modeling and trying to look like a model and trying to eat like a model, would you say that the biggest impact on you trying to be like a model was social media? Or did social media play like a bigger role in this?
At that time, I did not have Instagram or TikTok or any other social media platform. But it was a lot about like watching TV with my mom, and we were watching all these like shows and all these like model news. And for some reason, I just found something magical about it, I guess. I don't know. Something sparked my interest, and then I started to look these things up on YouTube, which was kind of that is its social media platform, I guess. And I started to look at all these like, you know, diet breakdowns. I started to learn about all different models and how they all kind of look the same, and they all kind of eat the same stuff and the same portions, or so they say. And that's, yeah, that I feel like YouTube had a very big impact on that, but it all started by like watching the TV, which is actually quite ironic.
And so, coming from the watching TV shows with your mom, do you think that your parents like somehow pushed you into, well, not pushed you into this, but like helped you to start having food disorder and thinking about this like whole topic?
I feel like my mom, she never realized anything like that could happen to me. And I wouldn't even say that she had an impact on it. Like she, to this day, she watches these types of news and she likes the gossip about the models and about the famous people, like in general. But my dad, he, you know, he used to play basketball. He was in the national team when he was younger. And he was always like this sporty guy, but then when he got a little older, he got his job and everything, he started to move less and eat more, and now he's having a little bit of like a weight struggle. That's not my opinion, he like actually says that. So I'm not being mean here. But I guess he always like had a little fear that I would end up like that. I don't know. And he always had these like weird, mean comments. Like, look guys, I always had a really athletic body, like even as a small kid. But I was eating a lot, as I said, to sustain that activity. And my dad had this like, I guess, fear that at some point I would be like eating too much and I would end up like him. So he had these comments that like, I'm getting fat, or like I'm getting bigger in certain areas, or, you know, and I mean, it's natural. Obviously I was getting bigger because I was growing from a child to a woman, literally. But he just had these weird comments, and at first I didn't really think anything of it. I was like, yeah, he's just being a dad. But later, you know, when people repeat these comments around you, it kind of gets to you, and you really started to think about it. And that's when I feel like I really started to think about like how my body looks, and I started to like stand in front of the mirror for hours and analyze it. Like, what if he's right? You know, what if I am getting fluffy, or whatever you want to call it. It's horrible. I don't even want to say it out loud, but yeah, it really, at some point, after hearing it again and again and again, you really started to think about whether these comments are actually right, if they're saying something correct. Yeah.
Mm-hmm. And I feel like it should have been like really hard for you as they're your parents, and usually what your parents say is true. But sometimes even my dad does that he like tells me that I'm fat or something, but I laugh about it. But even sometimes I have those moments when I'm like, is it true or is it not? So like I totally get you, and it's a bit sad that kids get to go through this. I feel like as parents, when they do this, they usually think it as a joke. But those kids that don't get it, they usually then struggle with it.
Yeah.
So that's pretty sad. So could you explain what is the difference between the pain spot and the sweet spot? Because I've heard of that a lot, but I don't quite get the difference.
So I'd say that, at least from my perspective, but I feel like in general as well, what I would call the pain spot is when you actively know that you're struggling and that those thoughts are not okay, that literally that voice in your head that's screaming at you, it's terrorizing you, and you feel uncomfortable. And you know that this is not normal, but you still feel that pain while knowing it's not normal, but you don't really know how to act against it. But you're trying to resist it, although you usually fail. And it's when you feel like you just want to cry all day. Your only thoughts are food, of course, and hating yourself. And it's like the point when you actually hate every single part of yourself, and you cannot think about anything else than just what about, the people are going to think of me, or what if I'm too bloated, or like, I don't know. It's like the whole bubble of whatever eating disorders consist of, it absolutely consumes you and it destroys you, and you feel how it's destroying you, but you don't really know how to act against it. And the sweet spot is what I'd say that it's when you actually might look a little more sick, you might look a little more dead in front of people, or how should I say, even if you're not underweight, you might look like all life has been drained out of your eyes. But it's also when you find comfort in that past discomfort. So that voice in your head, it becomes your comfort. So you kind of like actually learn to live with it, and that's when it gets really, really dangerous, and the illness can get chronic, because you stop actively resisting it and you stop accepting it as something disordered. It kind of really just becomes a part of your daily reality, and you don't even feel like it's destroying you on the inside.
And personally for you, was it harder to go through the pain spot part, or was it harder for you to shift from the pain spot to the sweet spot? Changing the
Definitely
reality.
the pain spot, because, when you switch between these two phases, when you kind of like move into that sweet spot, you don't really even notice it that much. At first you feel like you're actually like recovering, which is what I thought. I thought like, yeah, I'm doing so well. But then I went to the doctor's office, and it was like a classic checkup, and they weighed me. As I said, I didn't weigh myself. I just looked at myself in the mirror, and it shocked me how much my weight has dropped. And it also shocked me that voice in my head that I thought that I kind of got out, or like knew how to deal with it, it screamed at me even more for like a little while. And then I was back again at that sweet spot where I did not even feel like the voice was anything harmful to me. I actually found actual comfort in it. So that's why I'd say that the pain spot was definitely tougher for me, because first of all, I was trying to hide it. Like, no one knew I was struggling. I was the only one that was battling the voice in my head. So it was very, very lonely. And I had no idea how to communicate it with others, because first of all, I did not want them to be worried about me. And second of all, I had no idea how to communicate it, because, I did not want to come up to my parents and, again, worry them and like tell them, guys, I'm struggling. Like, what am I supposed to do? And then I know them, they would started asking questions, obviously, and I would not have the answers at that time. Like, I would not be able to answer those questions. So I was lonely and I was all by myself and trying to hide it while really all you wanted to do is cry. That was so challenging.
And when you were at the doctor's appointment and you saw that your weight dropped a lot, how did you manage to still be in the sweet spot? If you literally knew that it's bad, and as you told before that it was painful for you to see how the weight dropped, how did you still manage to be okay with it?
It was a shock, but at the same time, I was at that point when it was the sweet spot. So it felt kind of good knowing that, I felt like I was eating more than when I was in my pain spot because I was allowing myself to eat more food. But it was all just an illusion because obviously I would not have lost so much weight if I was eating more. So it felt kind of good that I felt like I was eating more but losing weight. It was a really good feeling, which is horrible to say. But I'd say it even carries that sweet spot more. And it never really felt real until I was in the hospital, honestly. Because that's when I really had to face actually eating more, way, way more. And seeing that weight drop, yes, it was shocking, but I started to worry about it only when it dropped even more and even more to a point when I knew I was going to hospital.
So basically before the hospital you just thought that you were trying hard and not seeing the weight, but feeling like you ate more, it helped you to stay motivated and think that everything is okay.
Kind of.
And did you have any fears that you struggled with? Maybe losing control or binge eating?
In the beginning, or maybe towards more of the end of the illness?
In the beginning.
Well, in the beginning, I had no idea that it could impact me so much. I never thought that I could be the girl that would go into hospital, or I could never be the girl to have long-term health problems from it because I never stopped eating. I was always eating. It's just that, first of all, consciously, and then later on, kind of subconsciously, I was just severely under-eating. And because I was still eating, I never thought I could get so skinny. But at the same time, I was under-eating so much that it actually got to that point, which is really, really scary. It just got out of hands. But I did not have any fears at that time. And then a little later, I'd say it started in the actual recovery when I was in the hospital and then at home and being force-fed. I was eating these huge portions, and obviously it was so uncomfortable, but my fear was that I would get used to it. I would get used to the portions and the frequency of the meals, and that I would stay in that mindset and I would keep on eating like that for forever, and that it would get out of hands. I would lose control. I would never be able to eat like a normal person. I feel like that's the biggest fear I had, that I would always have the urge to, that I would get used to the portions and I would always have the urge to eat so much food, and that I would never be able to live and eat like a normal person, eat freely, and that it could actually possibly shift into that binge eating because I would lose that control and I would lose the sense of what it means to be full and what it means to be hungry and how to satisfy those hunger cues.
But you never lost control of that, right?
Thank God, no.
Mm-hmm. So I feel like people really misunderstand what eating disorder is. So how did it really feel in your head? And how did people react to you having this problem?
So in the start, or throughout the whole journey, or if I can call it a journey, it feels like there is another person living in your head, or another creature, soul, voice. People call it many names. I would say it was a whole new person in me, that was trying to take control of my life, and it was impacting the others. So in the beginning, obviously, I was hiding it, so no one knew. It was really only impacting me. But later on, especially in that recovery, it's, you know, there's this saying, when it's screaming, it means it's dying. So when you're really like being fed a lot of food and you know that you're gaining weight and so on and getting healthy again, like actually healthy this time, then the voice in your head gets so loud that it needs to like get out of that head. So you kind of lose control of yourself and you scream at the people around you that are trying to help you, but you don't feel like they're helping you in that moment. Although like deep down you obviously know that they're helping you. That's the real you. But kind of this soul of you is surrounded by the other voice, which is the eating disorder. And it's screaming so loud that you feel like you need to scream at the people around you because you feel like they're hurting you. And that is what I feel like people often misunderstand. It's that the person that is in recovery, they're not trying to be mean to you. They love you. They actually hate themselves for screaming at you, but they can't really help it because it gets so bad in that head that they don't really have any other option than let it out, scream and cry, which makes it really hard for the people, the closest ones to you that are around you, because it impacts those relationships even like later on after you've recovered, because you will never forget what they were doing to you, whether bad or good. But they will also never forget what and how you screamed at them, even though, again, deep down they know that it wasn't the real you. It's really hard to forget those things, obviously. And I feel like that's really often misunderstood. And another thing that I feel like is really misunderstood is that many people think that the people that are impacted by the illness or like, you know, get sick, that they're doing it by their own will to get more attention, or I don't know why even people would choose to have these illnesses and these problems, whether it's anorexia or bulimia, binge eating, any eating disorder. I could not think of a single reason why people would choose these things. Like not even attention. It's not a relevant argument. But many people think so, and that is a huge misunderstanding. Like, you never choose to have this illness, and like knowing what it can do to you and how many long-term issues it can have and how much it can impact other aspects of your life, not just your weight and the way you look. People would never choose to have these things. They would rather like completely eliminate these issues, of course, just as any other illness.
So a follow-up question. Did you feel like people understood what was happening to you? Like, for example, you could compare friends, people in school, and probably the closest ones, your family. Like, who understood the most, who didn't? Could you like compare a bit? And how you felt being with those people?
I feel like the people that never go through this will never fully understand it, but there's a difference between just letting it go or like trying to understand that person that is struggling. And you know, I feel like the only person that really understood were either the friends or the people that I met in the hospital, like fellow people that were struggling as well, not the nurses, not at all, or my therapist, of course, because she's a professional. But my parents, they always, when they found out about the issue, they always like, I guess deep down tried to understand it, but they never really showed me the understanding in a way that would comfort me. Sometimes they would like say, you know, I know it's hard, or like, I know you're struggling, but that's where it ended. Like, I never really saw the true effort to help me and understand me. At the end of the day, they were only following the orders from the doctors. And that's where I find the biggest issue is that, yes, my therapist, that's not a doctor, she's a therapist. That's a completely different profession, and she understood. But the doctors, psychiatrists, my like pediatric doctor, zero understanding. And I feel like that's such a huge issue because these are the people you are technically supposed to go to for help, but they had zero understanding. And to this day, zero empathy, zero, like it felt like they knew nothing about it. The only thing they cared about were themselves and ticking off some boxes that they have in the system. I don't know what they are even. I just know that they are there. And they always like, when you go to them, they always like interview you without any emotions, without any understanding. They just interview like if you're at the police. They write something on a paper. It doesn't matter what you say to them. They write their own thing. And they send you home. That's it. They never really ask you how you're actually feeling or what feels like could help you or how it's going at the therapist's. No, they just do the paperwork and that's it. Mm-hmm. Sometimes they're even mean and they say unhelpful things like literally my psychiatrist once said, I will never forget this. So how is getting fat going? That is what she exactly said. And like, you know, I feel like when you're supposed to be a professional in this field, like act professional, like this is as if they were complete strangers to any mental disorders. Like it feels surreal that I'm even saying this and that I had to go to her office and listen to these types of comments like every single time I was there. Back to the understanding of people. With friends, I feel like most of them never really asked about it. And honestly, I cannot blame them. And I'm actually kind of grateful they didn't because, you know, I was already getting enough questions from the family, from the doctors, and it was already getting really hard for me mentally. And it was very overwhelming. I had appointments basically every single week. Also the nutritionist, I forgot about that completely. I had appointments basically every single week. They either weighed me or they interviewed me or both in the worst case scenarios. So I was kind of happy that I didn't really have to talk about it with friends. But then later in recovery, especially you, I feel like you were one of my biggest supporters and I'm so grateful for you because I felt like I could talk to you about anything, and even if you didn't really understand it, you tried to help and you maybe tried to at least comfort me, or like it felt like you kind of understood, even though we both kind of deep down knew that you don't. But it always felt like home. So I'm really thankful for that.
Well, I remember when you first came to me with this problem, and as no one in my family had ever gone through either losing weight or being overweight, I like literally had zero knowledge about this topic. So it was a bit confusing for me. And even before this episode, I still like didn't understand some things. And I feel like in this whole series, I will get to know more and more things about you and about the whole food disorder and everything. But yeah, as you said, I always like tried to at least say something that I was sure about and somehow comfort you, because I feel like that is what you lacked with all of the family and doctors that were actually supposed to help you, but in finale didn't. Which is interesting because, you know, doctors are the ones that you're supposed to go to and they're the ones that are actually supposed to help you, but they didn't. As you said, the pediatrist, that she told you, like, how is your path to gaining weight going? Like, that is so bad. Like, why would she say that? Because it just drops your ego so much, and
it makes you doubt everything.
Yeah, exactly.
Every single choice. And even to this day, it like led to the fact that I completely lost trust in doctors in general. Like, the other day I was going to get my blood tests done and I was shaking. Like, I didn't even, it was a nurse doing it. I never met her. I was never at that clinic. But I was shaking just because it was a medical center, which is crazy. And the last thing I would actually like to add with the understanding and stuff. I feel like my other biggest supporter, and I feel like I would have never gotten better without him, was my dog, which I know you might think that I sound ridiculous, but of course he can't talk, right? He doesn't understand words technically, but I feel like he would cheer me on every time I would need it. And he was really like there for me every time I needed him, and he knew when I needed him the most. And he was sick as well. He had a sick heart, and he was dying in front of me every single day. He was fading away, and he refused. He could have died like a month or two earlier. Like all the, vets, they were saying like he's gonna die like tomorrow. They were all losing hope, but he refused to leave me until he was sure that I was okay, until he was sure that he can leave me here in peace. And I feel like he's also the reason why I never had a relapse, because I could just not do that to him. Like, he sacrificed so much for me. He went through all, like, it was so painful for him. Like, that heart really was a painful illness. And, he was actually fading away day by day, but he made a promise to himself, I guess, to just take care of me and make sure that I'm okay until he left. And again, like, even when I was in recovery at home and I knew that I couldn't talk to parents about some things because I would either scream at them or they just wouldn't understand, I would just sit with my dog and I would tell him everything. And it felt like he was listening. It felt like it was actually helping. And it felt like I was talking to a person, honestly. Like, I know that he technically did not understand what I was saying, but somehow he made it feel like he understood every single word. And having that support with you 24/7 was, I feel like, the biggest reason why I recovered fairly quickly and very well.
That's a beautiful realization. I love that. And just like a brief ending to this episode, what is like the biggest and best takeaway that you could take from your whole path?
So, of course, if I would get another chance at life, I would never choose to go through this path again. But, as they say, everything bad is good for a reason, and everything happens for a reason, right? So I feel like it has taught me a lot. It has taught me to honestly, like, rely on myself a lot. I always was pretty independent, but this really, like, taught me that the only one you can truly trust is you and yourself. And it helped me find new relationships, find new friendships, and maybe take a break from the ones that weren't really serving me anymore, or that felt like they were not really true friendships. Because I feel like when you're struggling and when you're at your lowest, the people that actually care and they don't leave your side even when you're a pain in the ass to be around, those are the true friends. And I really got to test those friendships. And also, it really helped me to find true purpose in, like, movement and in life in general, to be honest. And I'm grateful, I guess, that I have all of this insight. I learned a lot about nutrition as well, like, in a good way, I mean. And I also feel like having that insight, I have a voice that can help the ones that are struggling right now, that are in the position that I was in years ago or months ago. And I feel like I can help. So I try to help where I can. And having gone through that, obviously I do not wish anyone else to go through it, but if they're already going through it, I'm just trying to help as much as I can.
That's beautiful, because that is why we're doing this episode. So I thank you very much, and see you in the next episode on this topic.
I'm excited to see you as well.